Some people think Karen Reed was responsible for the death of John O'Keefe, but a lot of people think she was innocent. In this video, I'm going to compare her different TV interviews with data. To me, things are not really adding up, and she changed her statement several times. Before I start getting into those interviews, here are a few important points to remember. Karen's car data revealed at 12:24 a.m. she and John parked at Fairview. John's phone data revealed his GPS location was never in the house. At 12:27 a.m., Jen McCabe texted John, "Here?" with a question mark and exclamation point, and he read it 15 seconds later without replying. At 12:29 a.m., Jen called John. Phone records show he answered for 7 seconds, but Jen testified she never spoke to him after giving directions at 12:18. At 12:30 a.m., John's phone disconnected from Karen's SUV Bluetooth. Between 12:31 and 56 seconds and 12:32 and 16 seconds, John took 36 steps in 20 seconds. This was the first time in the 7 minutes since parking that John took steps. At 12:32 a.m., John looked at Jen's message stating to pull behind her car, and 3 seconds later, he locked his phone, and 7 seconds after that, John's phone stopped moving until it was found under his body near the flagpole around 6 a.m. Also at 12:32 a.m., Karen's car went in reverse up to 24 miles per hour, which is debated by experts. A minute later, at 12:33, it was the first time Karen called or texted John since they arrived at Fairview. 12:36 a.m., Karen connected to John's home Wi-Fi network. From videos I've seen online, the quickest time from Fairview to John's house was 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Finally, at 12:37 a.m., Karen left John a voicemail that said, "John, I effing hate you." Also important to remember are the 3 eyewitnesses outside Fairview. After Karen turned onto Fairview at this intersection, a pickup truck with 3 people on the opposite side also turned onto Fairview, and they were behind her and John for approximately 5 minutes as a guest came out to talk and then returned to the party. The truck left and passed Karen's SUV and saw her in the driver's seat with the interior light on, which is usually on after somebody opens the door, but they did not see John. They never saw anyone get out of Karen's SUV the entire time they were parked behind her. Next, I'm going to play a lot of interview clips of Karen. I think it's best to watch the clips in their full context first, and then I'll analyze certain phrases. For some of these interviews, I had trouble screen recording the video part of it, so for sections where I only have the audio, I overlaid a screenshot. Here is what Karen said on Investigation Discovery.
So I'm driving, and John got on the phone with Jen, and he's telling me it's 34 Fairview. And we arrive at 34 Fairview. It didn't look like there was any soiree going on. It didn't look inviting. The outside was dark, and I didn't see any familiar looking vehicles. And I said, "John, can you make sure we're welcome?" And he said, "I'll run in." So when John got out of the car at Brian Albert's house, he took my full vodka soda, which is sitting in the cup holder, and he walked up the driveway. And John always kind of skipped and walked at the same time. He was always in a rush. And I saw him reach the breezeway door, which is the side front door. And he opened the door and went to walk in. And I waited probably a minute, and he doesn't come. And it only took like 2 or 3 minutes for me to be irritated. So I called him. I didn't want to wait for him to respond to a text. And he didn't answer. I said, "You've got to be kidding me. What are you doing? You just went in and I'm sitting here. Either we're welcome or we're not, but it shouldn't take you 5 minutes to determine that." And then about 10 minutes went by, and I left, and I was not happy. But little did I know, John was not getting my phone calls. And then that was it. The last I ever talked to him was when he got out of my car at Brian Albert's house. It didn't look like there was any soiree going on. It didn't look inviting. The outside was dark, and I didn't see any familiar looking vehicles.
The Alberts testified that they usually had 3 to 4 cars in their driveway, plus Karen had likely seen the McCabe's and Brian Higgins' cars previously, and there was a pickup truck behind her with its lights on for several minutes.
And I said, "John, can you make sure we're welcome?" And he said, "I'll run in."
While leaving the waterfall, Jen asked Karen if she wanted to ride with her to the after party at Jen's sister's house, and Karen heard John on the phone getting directions from Jen a few minutes before they arrived. Why would Karen think they were not welcome after they just happily hung out with these people?
So when John got out of the car at Brian Albert's house, he took my full vodka soda, which is sitting in the cup holder.
Karen lied to police and said she did not leave C.F. McCarthy's bar with a glass. But it's on video, and people at Waterfall said they laughed when Karen pulled it out after she arrived with John. John was on video leaving Waterfall with a small glass, and a broken small glass was found near his body.
And he walked up the driveway, and John always walked, kind of skipped and walked at the same time. He was always in a rush. And I saw him reach the breezeway door, which is the side front door. And he opened the door and went to walk in. And I waited probably a minute, and he doesn't come.
The pickup truck with 3 people was parked at the driveway, and others also stated that Karen was parked in line with the front door. Julie Nagel, the sister of one of the people in the truck, did say she looked out from the dining room table and saw an SUV at the mailbox near the driveway before her brother pulled up. But she later went out and talked to him and said he was parked along the driveway. So it seems Karen quickly pulled up when the truck pulled behind her. Julie testified about the location she saw the SUV outside.
I saw it pull up, stopped, pulled up again, stopped, pulled up again by the flagpole, stopped. That's all I saw.
But Julie did not remember seeing it when she talked to her brother at the end of the driveway. Those 3 people in the truck said no one ever got out of Karen's SUV. 9 people inside said John never came in. John's phone data showed 12:31 was the first time he took steps after they arrived at 12:24. And the center dot of his GPS phone location never showed in the house. There was some data with low accuracy that did include a radius including the house, but a few seconds later, as the accuracy improved, the radius did not include any part of the house. Karen's story does not add up with the electronic data, and the recollections of many eyewitnesses who were all consuming alcohol, and some of their stories don't add up either. But for this video, I'm focusing on Karen's stories.
And it only took like 2 or 3 minutes for me to be irritated. So I called him. I didn't want to wait for him to respond to a text. And he didn't answer. I said, "You've got to be kidding me. What are you doing? You just went in. I'm sitting here. Either we're welcome or we're not, but it shouldn't take you 5 minutes to determine that." And then about 10 minutes went by, and I left.
Karen's SUV stopped at 12:24, and the first time phone records showed she called or texted John was 9 minutes later at 12:33. She had to have been gone from Fairview by that time because her phone connected to John's home Wi-Fi at 12:36. It appears Karen lied about calling John while she was parked at Fairview. If she is innocent, why is she lying about these things? Next up are Karen's interviews with ABC on 2020 and Nightline.
I missed the turn. That would have been the most direct route.
Did you pull into the driveway?
No, I pulled at the foot of the driveway.
And do you and John have a conversation about what's going to happen?
I said, "Go check and let me know, and I'll follow you behind." So I pull at the foot of the driveway. I said, "Can we make sure we're welcome here?" Nobody extended the invite to me. I didn't hear the invite extended to you. So I pull at the foot of the driveway. It's snowing. John has no coat on. It's windy. So I drop him off. He goes up the driveway and approaches the side door. And as I see him approach the door, I look down at my phone. I hadn't been on my phone the entire night. I cue up a song to play on my Bluetooth, and I just start browsing through, missed text messages and a couple emails. And I probably waited about a full minute, and I look back at the door. I would have expected him to be either walking back to me or calling me that, "Yeah, we're here."
Reed says after about 10 minutes of waiting in her car, she became irritated that O'Keefe still hadn't gotten in touch with her, and she drove back to his home where she continued calling him before, she says, she fell asleep around 1:30 in the morning.
I said, "Go check and let me know, and I'll follow you behind."
What happened to telling police she had stomach issues from the bar and she dropped John off? Why would she say, "Go check and I'll follow you behind"? She was his ride home in a snowstorm, and she thought it might be the wrong house. So according to her phone records, she left him without calling when he could have been in a stranger's house. What if he came outside and said it was the wrong house? He had no ride home in the snow. This is not logical. It's so odd that Karen wondered if it was the right house after talking to Jen, who gave them directions, and using Waze for driving directions. Her story that she told John to go to the door alone when they arrived does not correspond to John's phone data showing he did not exit her car until 7 minutes after they parked, and he only walked for 20 seconds before his phone stopped near the flagpole and was found under his body later that morning.
So I pull at the foot of the driveway.
The three people in the truck turned onto Fairview immediately after Karen and pulled up to the driveway and never saw John get out.
I said, "Can we make sure we're welcome here?" Nobody extended the invite to me. I didn't hear the invite extended to you.
Jen asked Karen at Waterfall if she wanted to ride with her to the after party. At 12:14, John texted Jen, quote, "Where to?" end quote. And at 12:18, Jen called John to give directions. Why would Karen arrive at the house 5 minutes later and think they were not invited? In Karen's police interview on January 29th, she told them they were invited as they left Waterfall. She also told police she had stomach issues from the bar. So if Karen didn't feel like hanging out at this after party, why wouldn't she have told John to get a ride with the McCabe's when they were leaving the Waterfall so Karen could go home for the night?
So I pull at the foot of the driveway. It's snowing. John has no coat on. It's windy. So I drop him off. He goes up the driveway and approaches the side door. And as I see him approach the door, I look down at my phone.
In her investigation discovery episode, she said, quote, "And I saw him reach the breezeway door, which is the second side front door, and he opened the door and went to walk in," end quote. In this story, Karen did not see John open the door. She told him to check and she would follow him. So wouldn't you keep looking as he approaches the door for him to signal to you that it's the right house, instead of immediately looking at your phone so you don't see him wave you to come in? So many things about Karen's various stories are odd to me.
I hadn't been on my phone the entire night. I queue up a song to play on my Bluetooth, and I just start browsing through, missed text messages and a couple emails.
Karen's statement to police was that she had stomach issues, dropped John off, did a three-point turn, and left. The three people in the truck behind her, plus phone and car data, show that did not happen.
Reed says after about 10 minutes of waiting in her car, she became irritated that O'Keefe still hadn't gotten in touch with her, and she drove back to his home where she continued calling him before, she says, she fell asleep around 1:30 in the morning.
Phone records show Karen did not start calling John until after she pulled away from Fairview, which was after John's phone was at his final resting place near the flagpole, where Karen's SUV was seen parked by multiple people.
I had told both Jen and Kerry that I cracked my taillight. I said I just hit my car on top of everything, but I didn't look at the damage. And both women said, "It's cracked. It's cracked. Calm down. You cracked your taillight. You're okay. Let's go look for John."
If she did not look at it, how would she know she cracked it? She told Gretchen Voss she picked pieces out of her taillight. Why did she tell 2020 she didn't even look at the damage?
When my car was seized, there was a few small pieces of taillight missing that I had picked out at John's at 5:45 before we drove over to Fairview. I'm showing Jim and Kerry, look what I just did to my light, and I'm worried that there's going to be some kind of electric short circuit. There's like the bulb is showing, and some of the red plastic's missing. So I picked pieces out of the light housing that had kind of collapsed within the light and dropped them in John's driveway.
More conflicting statements from Karen. She did not look at the damage, yet she admitted she looked at the damage with Kerry and Jen, and pieces were missing, and she picked some out. And John's 5:07 a.m. Ring camera video proved that no pieces fell when Karen's car made contact with John's at less than 1 mile per hour. So when and how was her taillight broken before 5 a.m.? The people in the pickup truck noticed nothing wrong with Karen's rear SUV lights. Jen testified that Karen showed them her taillight when they arrived at John's, and people said Jen was a liar because the Ring video obviously shows that they walked directly into John's house without looking at her car. But Karen confirmed she showed them. So it seems like Jen, Karen, and Kerry looked at it when they went back out to Fairview. So who did it benefit to delete that Ring video of Karen picking pieces out of her taillight? Karen or the police and Michael Proctor? In my opinion, Karen. Due to restrictions, I can't play the entirety of these next interviews, so I'm going to display the full quotes on the screen as I read along. Karen said, quote, "We get to the house. It didn't look like it was busting at the seams with people, and there was maybe 1 or 2 cars in the driveway," end quote. As I said before, the Albert family had 3 to 4 cars in the driveway, plus the McCabe's and Brian Higgins, and the truck parked behind Karen for several minutes with its lights on. Karen said, quote, "I said, John, can you just run in there and can we make sure we're welcome here and it's somewhere we want to be?" He said, "Yeah, I'll be right back." and he got out of the car, end quote. I've already reviewed how Jen invited Karen, and she admitted to police they were invited. These were people they just hung out with for almost 90 minutes, having a good time. Karen and John knew some of them for several years. Also, it took John 7 minutes to get out of Karen's car, and he only walked for 20 seconds before his phone never moved from the flagpole. So her story does not match data. Karen said, quote, I saw him approach the front door. I see him go to the door and start to cross the threshold. I see him open the door and put his head inside. And I'm like, all right, he's going to yell to me, or he's going to come out and get me. And I look down at my phone, and in a matter of seconds, I look up, and he's not there. And then I waited for him to reemerge, which I assumed was going to be in moments, or that he'd yell to me from the front door, okay, end quote. This time, Karen mentioned the front door instead of the side door. John opened the door to a stranger's house, put his head inside, crossed the threshold, and she looked down for a few seconds at her phone. She said in other interviews, as John was approaching the side door, Karen looked down for about a full minute, and in another interview did not even mention him getting near the door. Why would Karen turn away to look at her phone at the moment John would likely be signaling to her that they were invited to come in? Why did John just walk in without even knocking? Why would he cross the threshold and go inside, instead of turning around to Karen and signaling, calling, or walking back to the car to get her? This makes no sense. Karen said, quote, and I'm waiting here in the snow and darkness. I don't know these people well. And what do you stay to have a beer? Why aren't you signaling to me? So I, soon thereafter, within Dennis, who's the name of the reporter, probably 2 full minutes, I start calling him, end quote. Karen knew the McCabe's for most of the 2 years she dated John. She knew Brian Higgins from when she planted an unexpected kiss on his lips while John was also in the house. She just hung out with these other people for an hour and 15 minutes. Phone data proved that Karen did not even call John for 9 minutes until after she parked at Fairview, not until 12:33, the minute after her car went in reverse and then left, and John never moved again. The reporter asked what happened next. Karen replied, I left. I went home. She thought her boyfriend possibly disappeared into a stranger's house, so she did not call, text, or walk to the front door, despite her being his ride home in a snowstorm after midnight. Am I the only one that this does not make any sense to? Most of the online comments I've read about this case scream that Karen is innocent, but these statements from her don't appear to be that of an innocent or truthful person, in my opinion, and also according to the data, which is more important than my opinion. The reporter talked about Karen being in her car and asked, what do you say, I'm out of here? Karen replied, quote, no, I kind of slow rolled it off the street, and I'm hoping that as I slowly edge my way down the street, he's going to say, wait, Karen, where are you going? This isn't the plot of a romantic comedy, Karen. Slowly? Her car data showed she went over 20 miles per hour in reverse soon after John finally exited her car. If we ignore that, and reality, and assume John was inside the house, before slow rolling it and wondering what was going on, why wouldn't Karen call John to find out? She said she did, but the phone data contradicts that. Also, if she had stomach issues like she told police and had to go to the bathroom, why was it not more urgent to call her boyfriend for 9 minutes after he disappeared into a house? Next is another clip from Investigation Discovery.
But I have no memory of a 200-pound man hitting my car in any way. And my memory is not as sharp when I drink as it is when I don't. But I don't black out. I don't wake up and say, I can't remember anything from the night before. So there's no part of me that thinks I hit John. I know I didn't hit John.
Well, what part of Karen can't remember the something she hit with her car? This is what her father said.
During your first discussions with Karen, did she believe she may have hit John?
No. She felt she struck something. She said, Dad, I think I struck something. I said, what do you mean? Right? This was in the hospital. Right? She says, I remember, all right, backing up and hitting something.
There was nothing on Fairview to hit in reverse other than John. Quote, I think I struck something, end quote, could not be referencing hitting John's car because she knew his car was the only thing she could have hit at his house because her car had a reverse camera and audio sensors warning her she was about to hit his car, and she still hit it at 5:07 a.m. By the time Karen talked to her dad, she had already shown Jen and Kerry the broken taillight before 6 a.m. And Karen admitted in the Gretchen Voss interview there were missing pieces that she picked out. But the 5:07 a.m. ring video shows no pieces falling on the ground. Also, Dr. Welcher confirmed that Karen's taillight was not at a height position to hit John's car and would not have cracked when her car was moving less than 1 mile per hour. At a certain point, Karen's memory did not even include being at Fairview when she called Jen at 4:53 a.m. and said she left John at Waterfall. She went from not remembering going to Fairview to remembering all these details that don't match up to cell and car data and eyewitnesses. To be fair to Karen, Jen McCabe also woke up and did not immediately remember that she saw Karen's SUV outside Fairview until her husband Matt reminded her. And also the memories of the other people have contradictions and changes over time. Karen thought she last saw John at Waterfall. So why would she tell Jen at 4:53 a.m. that she got in a fight with John if they were getting along fine on the videos from C.F. McCarthy's and Waterfall? So Karen remembered a fight with John in her car, but they were in the car after leaving Waterfall together. Karen's story about last seeing John at Waterfall was obviously proven wrong.
So there's no part of me that thinks I hit John. I know I didn't hit John.
At some point, parts of her seemed to think she could have hit John. Karen said, quote, "I said, could I have hit him? Did I hit him?" End quote. The reporter asked, how could that have been if she had just dropped him off at the house? She replied, quote, "I don't know what else could have been. It was howling wind. I had YouTube blasting on the stereo, and I thought, did he somehow try to flag me down, which was the reaction I was hoping to garner as I slowly pulled away from the house? Did he come out and maybe trip or bend over to pick up his cell phone, and I ran over his foot, and then he passed out drunk? I mean, I didn't think I hit him, but could I have clipped him? Could I have tagged him in the knee and incapacitated him?" End quote. What the hell? This does not add up to the facts and her statement that John skipped up the driveway into the house. In order to play YouTube, you have to have the app open on your phone. How is Karen calling and texting John while the YouTube app was blasting sound? If John was walking from the Alberts house back to Karen's SUV, as she slowly pulled forward, he is not going to trip into her car's rear taillight and die. I have not seen anywhere that Karen publicly mentioned going in reverse other than this clip.
So did you go in reverse 24 miles an hour, 53 feet?
The data is what the data is, and it's going to come out cleanly, more cleanly in our case in chief.
Was accelerating at 74% throttle.
Crash reconstructionist Judson Welcher testified that around 12:32 a.m. that night, Karen Reed's car traveled forward 34 feet into neutral, then in reverse 53 feet at about 24 miles an hour, the moment prosecutors say she hit John O'Keefe.
It's a forward motion followed by a higher speed rear motion.
Welcher said data from Reed's Lexus, the scene, cell phones, and his own testing of a same make and model Lexus that he purchased brought him to this conclusion. He also used himself as a test subject, since he's around the same height and weight as O'Keefe, using paint to see how the taillight could have lined up with John O'Keefe's arm injuries.
The approximate location of the taillight lines up with the approximate location of the lacerations on Mr. O'Keefe's arm.
Karen said, quote, "He didn't look mortally wounded as far as I could see, but could I have done something that knocked him out and in his drunkenness and in the cold didn't come to again?" End quote. The reporter asked, "And this would have been the moment that you dropped him off at the party?" Karen said, yes. To be fair, I think Karen meant John did not look mortally wounded when she gave him CPR. She said yes because she meant she could have done something to him when she dropped him off, not that she saw he was mortally wounded around 12:32 a.m.
I also wondered, did I say could I have hit him? Or was it told to me that I said I hit him? And I knew I never could have said that, so the closest I must have said was, did I hit him? And I know I said I hit him, but did I really say it as many times as law enforcement's claiming I said it?
Karen said she knew she could not have said, quote, "Could I have hit him?" End quote, but admitted she could have said, "Did I hit him?" which is essentially the same comment. But then she said, "I know I said I hit him, but did I really say it as many times as law enforcement is claiming I said it?" End quote. If you said it once, that indicates you are not 100% certain there was no possible scenario where you could have hit him.
I mean, not as clear as I would be if I hadn't been drinking. I mean, I had drank, so, and that led me to question, like, could I have hit him? Did I run over his foot or hit him in the knee? Did I incapacitate him? I mean, I always tried to my music blasting ever since I was 16. And I know when John got out of the car to go into Fairview, I know my car was blasting because when I got in it the next morning, I looked for him, I had to immediately turn it down. And I don't know, it's stormy. I probably had a few cocktails. I didn't black out, but I wasn't as lucid as I would have been if I had gone to bed at 9 and drank a tea. But I was fuzzier than I would have been if I had no alcohol. Could I have hit him? Did I run over his foot or hit him in the knee? Did I incapacitate him?
Are these things Karen thought after she went in reverse and saw John on the ground? She did not mean to hit him, but saw that he was no longer standing, and that is why she started calling him repeatedly to make sure he eventually got up and was okay. Based on her voicemail a few minutes later saying she hated him, it's obvious to me she left Fairview angry. Was she angry enough to not get out and see why John was on the ground? Based on where Karen parked and the Alberts' front door, it makes no sense for John to ever walk in front of Karen's car. So how else could Karen be open to a scenario where she hit him, other than going in reverse after he got out after an argument?
I mean, I always tried to my music blasting ever since I was 16. And I know when John got out of the car to go into Fairview, I know my car was blasting because when I got in it the next morning, I looked for him, I had to immediately turn it down.
Karen said she and John had a discussion about him going inside to make sure it was okay. How can you have that discussion when your music is blasting when John got out of the car? Her music was not blasting on the voicemail she left when she pulled into John's garage and turned her car off at 12:42.
The voice message at 12:41:35.
After she had been at John's house for 6 minutes. What took so long to pull into the garage and get out? We'll never know if she got out to examine the damage to the back of her car, because that Ring video was deleted by a mystery person. This next part is from her 2020 interview.
Firefighter said that you said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
I said, I hit him. It was preceded by a did and proceeded by a question mark. What I thought could have happened was that did I incapacitate him unwittingly, somehow, and then in his drunkenness, passed out?
Under what circumstance would John get out of the passenger side at the foot of the driveway? Karen witnessed him make it through the house door and think she possibly incapacitated him. He would not have walked in front of her SUV while she was driving forward. That only leaves her driving in reverse. Her car had audio and video sensors to warn her that a pedestrian was near her car. But I've never heard Karen say those sensors never made noise at Fairview. Karen has no difficulty remembering how many drinks she had, missing the turn onto Fairview, remembers multiple scenarios of John exiting the car, none of which match electronic data. She remembers slowly pulling away and vividly recalls pulling into John's garage, but she has memory issues about the possibility of hitting John. There are more holes in Karen Reid's story than a block of Swiss cheese. Calgon, take me away. Karen answered in her Boston 25 interview why she would say she wondered if she hit John if she saw him go inside the house.
On the morning of January 29th, 2022, you said it was possible you might have hit John. How could that even be in the realm if you saw him going into the house?
Because it never crossed my mind that the people we were with, middle-aged adults with children, some of the children were with us that night at the bar. It did not cross my mind for several days that they did this to John, that John was treated like a piece of garbage. These were women and men, some I knew better than others, that I knew to be normal people. And I went through every possibility. He was near the road and he was dying. And I didn't think he was purposely put in that place.
I sound like a broken record and a robot, according to people in my TikTok comments, but John's phone GPS location was never in the house. People can argue about his phone GPS location, sometimes including the house, but that was only with low accuracy, and the center point was never in the house. John's phone only showed him move 7 minutes after they parked, and for only 20 seconds. And then his phone stopped moving at the flagpole. Karen's accusations that people inside the house caused John's death is not backed up by evidence.
She indicated that they left the waterfall and were invited to the house on Fairview Road. She stated that she dropped the victim at the house on Fairview and went home since she was having stomach issues at the previous bar. She stated that she dropped the victim off. She made a 3-point turn in the street and left. Did not see the victim enter the house.
So she told police on January 29th, 2022, that she did not see John enter the Alberts house, but years later said she did and blames the people inside. From the time I started looking into this case, I've kept an open mind, and I realized that Karen has not been convicted after 2 trials. But up to this point of my research, I'm not seeing that Karen was framed. And as you can tell by all the things I've reviewed so far in this video, they don't show her as being a truthful person.
Calls you made to your mother overnight. What were those calls about?
Anyone who spent any time with me throughout my life knows I'm incredibly close to my parents. And I was very troubled, to put it. You've heard the voicemails. It was a blizzard. There were young children unattended. And John, uncharacteristically, and when I say uncharacteristically, I mean he's never done that before at that hour in those conditions. And I was panicked. I was torn between, did something go wrong, or is he purposely ignoring me and taking advantage of me to go home to the kids while he stay out drinking? And as I do, and do I wish I did it less? Yes, but now I need her more than ever. As I normally would do, I'd reach out to my mother for, what do you think's happening?
John has never done what at that hour? Gotten out of Karen's car after arguing for 7 minutes, walked for 20 seconds, and then died so he could not reply to her phone calls that she only made after she drove away from the Alberts house, where data shows John never even entered, yet Karen, her attorneys, and people on the internet claim John was murdered inside. Karen has repeatedly placed blame on John O'Keefe for going into the Alberts house and being rude to her by not telling her it was okay to come inside or answering her phone calls, but she never called him while she was parked outside for 9 minutes, and his phone was never inside the house, despite Karen's plethora of statements that she saw him approaching the door and then looked at her phone, saw him stick his head inside and cross the threshold, and then she looked at her phone, that she called him a couple of minutes after she saw him walk inside, and her first story to police that she never even saw him go inside because she had stomach issues and left doing a 3-point turn after dropping John off. Karen Reed has told more stories than Dr. Seuss.
So I thought, when I run him over, did he try to get me as I was leaving and I didn't know it? I mean, I've always got the music blasting. It's snowing. I got the wipers going, the heater blasting. Did he come and hit in the back of my car and I hit him in the knee and he's drunk and passed out and asphyxiated or something? And then when I hired David, I asked him those questions the night of January 29th. Like, David, what if, I don't know, what if I ran his foot over or what if I clipped him in the knee and he passed out or went to care for himself and he threw up or passed out, and David said, yeah, then you have some element of culpability.
Karen never said what scenario this could have happened during. Her attorneys may have later argued she never went in reverse to cause one of these scenarios, but Karen seemed open to it before her trials.
John, I'm telling you, fucking kids. Nobody knows what the you want, fucking pervert.
Karen had not asked anyone where John was, so why would nobody know where he was? She said she saw him walk into Fairview 35 minutes before leaving this message. Yet she did not call or text him while parked outside, and only called starting at 12:33 after driving away, and left a voicemail at 12:37 that only said, "John, I effing hate you," which indicates an argument happened during the 7 minutes John and Karen sat in her car. I have no idea why she called him a pervert, or what could have changed from them acting angry at each other texting earlier in the day, to happy at the 2 bars, to John being a pervert and Karen hating him. In all of Karen's interviews and variety of stories, she never mentioned the following: John used Waze to find the house, and it would have shown they were parked at 34 Fairview, driving her car forward a few times based on eyewitness testimony, going in reverse. A variety of people standing at the glass front door said Karen was parked directly in front of it, so she should have seen that door and the people looking out it while she was talking to John for 7 minutes after they parked. The truck behind her for several minutes before it drove by. Julie Nagel exiting and entering the home after standing in the driveway for several minutes, arguing with John in the car. Karen said she pulled up and wanted John to check it out, and he got out. The police report stated, quote, the defendant informed Ms. McCabe that she and the victim had gotten into an argument the last time that she had seen him, end quote. The police report also stated John's niece heard Karen's morning calls with Jen, and Karen changed her story multiple times, initially stating that she and the victim got into an argument and she dropped him off. I'm going to end this video, finally, reviewing the data. Despite her changing words, data showed Karen did not call John at all in 9 minutes while parked outside the Alberts house, but did call him 6 times in 2.5 minutes after she left while driving drunk in a snowstorm back to his house. Around the time Karen appears to have lied about calling John, we know John looked at his phone several times. Some people believe Karen's statements and speculate that a 6'1", 200-pound Boston police officer went inside this house and immediately got attacked by his friends, 2 law enforcement officers, a high school senior, and a dog, but they don't seem to take into consideration John unlocked his phone 3 times with Face ID after he and Karen arrived at 12:24 a.m. Yes, I made a spreadsheet for your viewing pleasure. John unlocked his phone 3 times with Face ID. Also at 12:24, John read the text from Brian Higgins, "You coming here?" which was 31 seconds after he and Karen arrived. 12:27 a.m., he read the text from Jen that said "here," which was 3 minutes and 20 seconds after they arrived. Finally, at 12:32 a.m., he read the text from Jen that said "pull behind me," which was 7 minutes and 38 seconds after they arrived. Jen misspelled pull with 3 L's, not me. At 12:30 a.m., John's phone disconnected from Karen's car's Bluetooth, so it likely had not been inside the house for the 6 minutes since he and Karen parked. At 12:31 a.m., John started walking for the first time since arriving. He took 36 steps for about 83 feet for 20 seconds. 12:32 a.m. was the end of John's steps, and at 12:33 a.m., it was the start of a pocket state, which meant that John's cell phone camera was blocked by something. There was no other phone activity until after 6 a.m. when his body was found. So for this Mick Alberts plus a German Shepherd conspiracy, I'm supposed to believe that Karen parked at 12:21 or 12:24 a.m., depending on which data expert you believe. Then John skipped up the driveway and opened the door to a stranger's house, and Karen immediately turned away, despite saying she was waiting for him to signal to her if it was okay to come in. Then John got beat up immediately, and his killers and accomplices, the people who he had just had fun with at the bar, some of whom were his friends for years and even helped out with his niece, then these killers took his cell phone and put it up to his unconscious face so they could open his phone with Face ID and look to see what text messages he had received. And then these cop killers then pressed the lock button on John's phone so they would have to repeatedly put his cell phone to his just murdered face to repeatedly look at his other text messages. Then they pushed the lock button on his phone for one last time at 12:32 and 9 seconds, and they magically transported his body and phone from the basement to his final resting place at the flagpole 7 seconds later. This makes 0 sense. John's phone data does not support an attack inside the house. These are the same people who argue that John's phone data showed him going up and down 3 flights of stairs between 12:21 and 12:24, ignoring the testimony that proved it was the change in elevation from the bar while Karen and John were driving to the house. Yet these people have no explanation why John's phone would not show being carried up 1 flight of stairs from the basement in 20 seconds of movement around 12:32 a.m. Oh, and the reason he was attacked was because a high school senior was mad John did not like him putting beer on his lawn, despite evidence that this kid was gone from the house even before Karen started her car at Waterfall. Or Brian Higgins wanted Karen all to himself, so he attacked John. Or the German Shepherd, who did not attack the other 9 people who were actually proven to be inside the house, did not like John, so it only bit his right arm, but there was no dog DNA on John. I realized that experts testified that John's injuries were not consistent with a car accident, and that is what Karen was charged with. But these various statements by Karen do not reflect a truthful person, in my opinion. For everyone who has been yelling at your screen during this video, yes, I am keeping track of lies told by other people involved in the case, and I will include them in my long deep dive video on the entire case and the 2 trials that I've been working on for the past month, and who knows when I'll end up finishing that video. Thanks for watching.